Hello and welcome to My Piano Method with me, Michelle Orp. This is my beginner to grade course, lesson 7. Now, in the second part of this lesson, I'm going to teach you the best thing you will ever learn on the piano, and that's how to play any song in the world just by learning a very simple technique, which is called the big small technique. This means that you can find any major and minor chord on the piano from any note. It doesn't take long to learn, and it means you can look up the chords to all of your favourite songs, and with a very simple formula, just play them. It's absolutely fantastic. And if you love all that stuff, I highly recommend my Chord Jammer course. You can find it in the playlists. That teaches you all about chords and scales, and you don't even need to learn how to read music. But before we move on to part 2 of lesson 7, which is the technique, you do need to understand about intervals. And actually, when you're learning how to sight read on the piano, you need to know the difference between harmonic intervals and melodic intervals. So let's take a look now. So if you take a look at your piano, we know that from the note of C, there are 7 notes: C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And then we start at the C again. And we learnt in the very first lesson that C to C is an octave. It's 8 notes apart, and we can find this octave from any note. So G to G is also an octave, A to A is an octave. Now all of these other notes are also different intervals from the root note. So if we take our root note of C, so this is a C major scale, a C to a D is called an interval of a second because it's 2 notes apart, C to D. C to E is 3 notes apart, C, D and E. So we call this an interval of a third. C to F will be an interval of a fourth, C, D, E and F. C to G will be an interval of a fifth, C to A will be a sixth, C to B will be a seventh, and C to C will be an eighth. And we can do this from any note. So if we start at G, G to A is a second, G to B is a third, G to C is a fourth, G to D is a fifth, G to E is a sixth, G to F is a seventh, and G to G is the octave. And we can always work this out from any note. So if I said to you, I want you to play a third from F, why don't you pause the video and see if you can find a third, an interval of a third from F. Okay, so hopefully you went to an F, you counted 3 notes, F, G and A, and there is your interval of a third from F, F and A. So practice this on all the different notes until you get the hang of it. But there are 2 different types of intervals we need to be aware of. So if we have a look at what these intervals look like on the score written down, so you can see the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, 6th, the 7th and the 8th. And we're just stacking the notes on top of each other here. Obviously the 2nd, you can't quite fit the D on top of the C, so they kind of just squidge it to the right. But there are 2 different types of intervals we do need to be aware of. So if we take the interval of a second, here it is, C to D, the first type of interval we're going to look at is the harmonic interval. And that means that you're playing both of these notes at the same time. And the notes are harmonising each other. But if we were to play these notes one after the other, that would be called a melodic interval. So they're both still an interval of a second, but you can hear the difference. The harmonic interval sounds like this, and the melodic interval sounds like this. So if we take an interval of a third, the harmonic interval is nice and easily recognisable because we're just stacking one note directly on top of the other one, and it sounds like this. The melodic interval sounds like this. If we take an interval of a fourth, which is the C to the F, this is the harmonic interval, and this is the melodic interval. An interval of a fifth would be C to G, the harmonic interval sounds like this, and the melodic interval sounds like this. For the 6th, the harmonic interval sounds like this, and the melodic interval sounds like this. For the 7th, which is C to B, the harmonic sounds like this, and the melodic sounds like this. And of course, our last interval is the interval of an eighth, which is called an octave. C to C, it sounds like this. And the melodic interval sounds like this. So that is all you need to know about intervals, and you do need to start recognising them in music because it will help you to sight read. We're going to take a closer look at the interval of a third. One, because it's one of the most common intervals that you see in sheet music, but two, because we use it to make chords, which is what today's lesson is all about. And to show you what I mean about it being recognisable, if I was to put a load of intervals of a thirds onto the stave like this, this is relatively easy to play because I can see that the first interval starts on a C. I know it's a third because it's one note stacked directly on top of each other. So straight away I can play those two notes together very easily. And I can actually see they're just going up one note at a time. So we go to the D and then up the piano.